Today I want to talk about a rather amazing discovery I made online just the other day. It was of a ballet called Checkmate by Sir Arthur Bliss. Now, Bliss is a composer that I've been interested in for a very long time, and when I was in my teens he was still alive and he was still producing new work, and he was actually the master of the Queen's music in the last 10, 15, 20 years of his life, and he did that job rather well. I remember he did fanfares and things for the investiture of Prince Charles as Prince of Wales, which is something most people have completely forgotten about now, but anyway, it was rather a grand ceremony at the time. But he was definitely a serious and major British composer, and his major works date from the 1920s right up to the 1970s. He wrote a very nice cello concerto very late on, which I remember the premiere of actually on the radio. Anyway, he's very famous for doing the music for the film Things to Come, based on H.G. Wells, which is a great sensational British futuristic science fiction film in the 1930s. That is extremely memorable and characteristic music. Also, another major work of his, and one of my great favourites, is it's a choral symphony called Morning Heroes, written in the 1920s, or around 1920 I think it was, which was essentially a kind of war requiem. It was in memory of the dead of the First World War, particularly his own brother, and many other striking works. And he has a very distinctive style. You couldn't mistake his music for anybody else's. That's what I like about it. He was in some ways a traditionalist. He looked a bit like Elgar in a way. He looked like a military officer with a nice moustache and so on. And he did indeed serve with distinction in the First World War. But actually, there was a lot more to him. That was his outer image. He was a traditionalist in the sense he was influenced by people like Elgar and Romanticism. His music has nice melodies in it. At the same time, he was very much aware of modern developments, particularly people like Stravinsky. In fact, I think he's about the only composer I can think of who actually combines the influences of Elgar and Stravinsky, which is most unusual. Another one is probably me, actually. Anyway, so he composed in 1937 a ballet called Checkmate, and it was his idea for a ballet based on a game of chess, and it was choreographed by Ninette de Valois, the great choreographer, the founder of the Royal Ballet, as it later became. And it became one of the great classics, one of the central pillars of the British ballet repertoire, and it's still done to this day. But what fascinated me was I found just by chance online, I think it was from some kind of obscure Russian website that's to do with chess in films and music. I found a film of about 1982, I think, which is actually of a performance at Sadler's Wells of the original production of Checkmate in full, which is marvellous, and it is very, very striking. And the design is by a chap called Edward McKnight Calfer, and his name might be familiar to some people as a very well-known designer, particularly of posters. He was one of these people who designed those very striking graphic posters in the 1940s, I think it was, and the design is fantastic. 1930s rather than 40s. The design is fantastic, and it's all in red and black because the two chess teams, rather than being black and white, they're black and red, which I suppose just makes a more dramatic colour contrast. And it's quite a strange idea for a ballet, really. It's about the conflict of a game of chess, and it's actually very dark, and it ends with the death of the Red King, who is finally cornered and isolated, and all his supporters have gone, and he expires. So it's rather a grim ending. But anyway, it's an amazing work, and I just love the music. At one point he uses actually the march from Things to Come, which is a very famous piece of his. He uses that in the ballet as well. But it has this amazing sort of edgy quality, spiky, edgy, but then with romantic melodies as well. And I think Sir Arthur Bliss is a British composer who really ought to be a lot better known. His music isn't done all that much nowadays. It's done occasionally, but he's been a little bit forgotten, and I think that's really bad. I think he's one of the great originals of British 20th century music. And so I'm going to put a little extract from Checkmate, and then I'll put a link to the whole ballet, which lasts about 45 minutes. And I hope people will go and have a look at it and enjoy it, and then hopefully that might lead them to investigate the wonderful music of Bliss further. So here we go. Checkmate, the ballet by Sir Arthur Bliss, choreographed by Ninette de Valois from 1937 in a production on TV, Sadler's Wells, 1982.